And welcome to the 4-Point Plan. This is episode 28. It is Sunday, January 10th, 2021. As always, I am your host of the 4-Point Plan, J.R. Roberts. I am a drug counselor here in Los Angeles, California. And as always, I am joined by my two friends to tell you about the 4-Point Plan, about the wonderful program that could save your life and give you a life beyond your wildest dreams. First, let's say hello, Sean. Hello, Sean.
Hello. Welcome. Thanks for having me on the show today.
I have you on the show every week, brother, and it's awesome to have you here like always. And let's also introduce my buddy Guy. How are you, Guy?
Good morning, world, in the 4-Point Plan. Welcome. Thank you, JR, for having me on again.
Guy, why are you so happy this week? I mean, those of you that watch on YouTube can see Guy's dressed like an asshole again. He's dressed up like a some sort of a farm animal with horns and a football jersey. Guy, what's going on with you, buddy?
Rams won a playoff game yesterday. Go Los Angeles Rams.
Oh, is it the first time that's ever happened?
No. Done it lots of times, Mr. R.
You look so excited is all I'm saying. It's good to have you excited. I'm excited.
Yeah,
I'm excited. Here's what the real excitement is. It's not just, Wild Card Weekend. Wild Card Weekend is fantastic for all of our football fans out there. But for our recovery fans out there, there's another special occasion. It's fucking Sponsor Appreciation Weekend. This is where we go and we celebrate the person that has taught us how to get clean and stay clean, that member of the 4-Point Plan. So let's go over the 4-Point Plan real quick. Number one, you want to go to 90 meetings in 90 days. Go to a meeting every day for 3 months. Don't get confused about it. Just go every day for 3 months and then tell me how it worked. Number two, you want to get a sponsor and work with that sponsor. You want to call that sponsor. You should be talking to your sponsor every day, probably. You want to get a real sponsor you talk to, not a sponsor that you just pretend to talk to, or you tell people that you have a sponsor, but you never ever talk to them. No, get a real life sponsor where you can call them every day, maybe go to a meeting with them, have a relationship with this person. Number three, I want you to get a home group. That's a meeting that you never miss. No matter what, you're going to be there every week. People are going to know your name. People are going to love you like family there. And last but not least, get a service commitment. Hell, get 2, get 3, get 4. Get commitments at the meetings. Give yourself a reason to be at the meeting so that you can give back to the program that saved your life.
A job at the meetings.
Get a job at the meetings. Be the literature guy. Be the coffee maker.
Be of service.
Yeah, be a service, man. Get a service commitment.
Keep up the cockroaches outside like JR did.
Yeah, you could go sweep up the parking lot if you want.
That's right. That might be a commitment. That's a good commitment.
But today, the part of the 4-Point Plan I want to talk about is the sponsor, because the sponsor is maybe my favorite one, man. Like, I used to sponsor dudes. I used to sponsor the old co-host of the 4-Point Plan, Kevin. Being a sponsor is awesome, man. You get to help somebody, teach them how you went through the 12 steps, teach them how you got sober and stayed sober, and participate in their recovery. It's pretty cool. But I couldn't do it if it weren't for my sponsor. And my sponsor, Bob, is a person who I love tremendously. This dude had so much faith in me when I was a wreck, man. I was a mess. I couldn't stop using. And I asked Bob if he'd sponsor me, and he said, yeah, man. So how fucking lucky am I that someone put up with my bullshit, had the patience for JR when he was new in recovery? I mean, I hate to admit it, guys, but when I was new at this, I was an asshole. I was not good at it. I was fucking strung out and dope sick, and it took me a long time, man, to wake up and not be sick to my stomach. A long time, actually, to even get to sleep, man. I was struggling to get sober.
The JR was an asshole, huh?
Bleeding all over the tables.
It took a long time, is what I'm saying, man. And physically, I was unwell. I had MRSA on both of my arms, which is a medically resistant staph infection on both of my arms. And so I was heavily bandaged. I was walking into meetings with big old bandages on my arms. I'm sure people thought, oh, he must still be shooting up. But no, it's just my arms took a long time to recover from the surgery that I had to have in order to keep my arms from the MRSA and the shooting heroin and cocaine every day. So, man, I was a wreck when I got sober. And I did not know how to behave. Like, I didn't know how to be social. I didn't know how to be healthy. I didn't know how to be normal. I was embarrassing, man. I was embarrassing to myself. I was embarrassing to people around me. People didn't want to be friends with me because they thought I was mean and angry and violent. I had been using for so long, and one of the tools I had picked up along the way while I was using was to look as scary as humanly possible. Because in order for me to continue to use drugs and to get my way when I've struggled having money or struggled with anything, man, was to look really scary. Now think about it. Really, I was just a skinny little dude, right? But I would be going to some serious, dangerous neighborhoods in the middle of the fucking night, and I would have to look like a fucking serial killer so people didn't come up and stab me. So
That's when the
when
Hell
I
Kid
got
was
first got
created.
clean, man, I still had that. I had to carry that with me. I had to look scary and sound scary. And you know, the
I think
truth is
I
the
think when
truth
you're
about
strung
me.
out, you might just be scary anyways.
Is
Now
that
the
when the Hell
truth
Kid was created?
the truth about me is inside me there's always been a scared little kid. Okay, I'm just like this little kid that never grew up, never matured, never developed any coping skills, any abilities to live life. And so I developed this persona that I carried with me as a punk rocker and a pro wrestler and all that, where I tried to be as scary as possible, because in reality I was scared and I was vulnerable and I was sensitive and I didn't want anybody to hurt me, right? So I carried that scary persona with me for a long time, hoping that it would work for me to give me what I needed, if that was drugs or security or a place to stay or just people not to fuck with me. That's what I did, and that's how I thought that I had to be. So I carried that shit with me for a long time, even when I got sober. So here I'm talking about my sponsor. You know, Bob accepted me for all my fucking weirdness and scariness and bad attitudes and social ineptitude. He put up with me. And one of the first things I remember, an example that happened when I was with Bob that I was so embarrassed about when I look back on, but I was still so new to like being around people. He'd invited me to his house, and I always thought it was weird when people let me in their house because I thought that I was so scary looking. I probably looked like I was gonna, rob everything or whatever. So I'm at his house, and we're gonna go to the Dodger game, and we're getting ready to go to the Dodger game, and his wife is there, and his wife is this lovely lady. She's pretty, she's nice, and she's standing right next to him. And I said, "Hey, Bob, tonight it's fiesta night," and he says, "Well, what does that mean?" I said, "I think it means we're gonna drink whiskey and get hosed." Both of them stopped and looked at me like, "What the fuck is wrong with you?"
Get this guy out of our house.
Exactly. And now I look back and I'm like, what the fuck was I thinking? Why would I say something like that to Bob in front of his wife? Even if his wife wasn't there, why would I be talking like that? Why am I such a fucking idiot?
Cool, man.
But I was still new, and I was still this like socially inept, confused, dumb, embarrassing moron. And it took a long time for me to change from being that person. And if I have succeeded in becoming any better of a person, I give credit for that to Bob, to my sponsor. So I'm so grateful for that guy for putting up with my shit when I was new, putting up with my weird behaviors, because I needed that guy, man. I need a sponsor. It says it right there in the 4-point plan. 90 and 90, get a sponsor, get a home group, get a commitment. Get a sponsor. It's so important, man. And so many people I meet and I talk to, and I try to convince them, man, you gotta do the program, you gotta do all this, you gotta go to meetings, you gotta get a sponsor. They'll tell me, well, I don't have a sponsor. And I'll say, well, why don't you have a sponsor? And they're like, well, I don't trust people. Okay, I get that. I understand. But if you stay alone, man, that's not going to work for you. If you keep doing what you've always done, you're going to keep getting what you've always got. So in order to change your life, you have to do things differently. And one of those things that you have to do, in my opinion, is the 4-point plan. And part of that is getting a sponsor. So I know I'm super fortunate to have the greatest sponsor in my world. I think that you guys both probably have similar experiences. Guy, why don't you weigh in on this with us? I want to hear about your relationship with your sponsor, how you got him, and how that's going.
I got a sponsor. His name's Bob also.
What? My sponsor's name Bob. You got a sponsor named Bob? My sponsor's name Bob.
I love that guy.
It's not your sponsor though. It's a different guy named Bob. Go figure. That's what's crazy about this.
Apparently, all sponsors have to be named Bob.
Yeah. For all those people listening, your sponsor doesn't have to be named Bob also. It's just what happened. I don't know. I chose him. Bob was actually my second sponsor that I've had in this sobriety here. And I was going for a little while without it. You know, I knew that a sponsor was pretty important in the beginning. So I was able to get one. And it took me a minute because I had that fear. I was scared to ask somebody. I never did it at that point. That was my first time doing it at the beginning of this sobriety. And I don't know. I was just like wanting to pick the right one. All this shit was floating around in my head, trying to decide which one, how to do it. Do I really need it? Well, maybe. No, I think I've learned enough. My mind was telling me that I learned enough about how this thing works. I don't need to tell people about it. I probably don't need anybody. You know, I was already a couple months sober, but it just kept getting suggested that I did it. So I had a lot of willingness at that time. So I did it. I asked a guy to sponsor me. And then circumstances worked to where I got away from that sponsor for a minute. And I was pretty much without a sponsor for a while. I was going to a lot of meetings still. And man, did I need a sponsor? I realized it. I was not running my wild ideas past anybody. I wasn't telling people what was really going on in that crazy brain up here in sobriety. And there was a guy at the meeting named Bob who just kept on. He always went there. I liked the way he worked his program. I loved the way he shared about things in sobriety. I looked up to him. So I said, I got desperate enough again. And I said, hey, Bob, would you be my sponsor? I said, I need help. I can't do this thing on my own. You know, at that point I had about, what was it, like 2.5 years or something like that. And he said, yeah, I can tell you need a sponsor guy. Of course I'll work with you. And I said, all right. And so I got a sponsor named Bob today who I still admire. I look up to. I check in with them. I run my wild ideas past. He helps me. And he always tells me that I help him. Imagine that.
Yeah, it's a good dude, Bob. I really like your Bob. My Bob I like a lot too, but I really like your Bob too. I'm lucky to be friends with that guy. You know, his birthday is the same week as mine, so we end up going to the same meetings and taking cakes at the same time. So that's always pretty fun too. That's so right. Yeah, I love Bob. I love my Bob. I love your Bob. You know, another guy I love is Sean Sponsor. Like, we know Sean Sponsor because he is cool, man. He's cool as shit. He's a sports fan. He's our age. He might even be younger than us, man. He's fucking cool, though. I like your sponsor, Sean. Why don't you talk to us about him a little bit?
It's an easy topic. I love talking about my sponsor. It's so easy. I didn't realize it was Sponsor Appreciation Weekend. Now I kind of feel like an asshole. But his name is Nathan. He's a Pisces. No, I'm just kidding. I don't know what he is. But, no, he's awesome. He's probably listening. So shout out to Nathan because he always supports me in my sobriety. I was in treatment, and he was one of the guys that picked us up to go to outside meetings, and we connected. There was a couple of things he said on the way, and I'm like, oh, I kind of relate to this guy. So we got out of the car, and I asked him, I said, hey, will you be my sponsor? He goes, how willing are you? I said, oh, I'm willing to get sober. He goes, the only way I will sponsor you is if you do the exact same things that I did. And I'm like, sure, I'm willing to do whatever it takes. So he goes, okay, well, talk to me after the meeting. So we did the meeting. Then we went to the parking lot, and he pulls out this notepad. This is how I got sober. This is what you need to do if you want me to sponsor you and stay being your sponsor. He starts writing this list, and it took about 10 minutes. And I'm like, what is this guy writing down? It was like all the requirements for him to sponsor me. I had to read the big book from cover to cover. I had to do 90 and 90.
90 and 90. Wait, what?
Yeah, that was
and
the first
90,
one.
there it is.
90 and 90. Oh man, your sponsor's a genius.
So 90.
Oh, he must know about the 4-point plan.
Yeah, they all do over there. It's all intertwined, connected off those traditions. So I do 90, read the big book cover to cover. I had to get a commitment at every single meeting.
Wait, you had to get a commitment?
Every meeting I was at, I got a commitment. That was 7 a week. Plus I covered a lot of people, so I had multiple at some points. But the most important, I had to be honest. I had to be willing, and I had to call them every single day. And at first I was a little resistant at first. Not that I was being dishonest with them. I just was like, I would call them to check in. He'd be like, how you doing? I'm like, oh, I'm doing good. And then he'd be like, all right, is that it? I'm like, yeah, I'm good. And I would just hang up. But it took me a long time to realize that's not what he meant when I called him. He wanted to know about my day. He wanted me to ask him for suggestions before the things happened, and not just give him a history lesson of my actions during that day or during whatever event took place that day. But it took me, I don't want to say I have trust issues, but it took me a little while to actually come clean with everything. I wasn't being dishonest to him. I wasn't lying to him, but it just took me a while I don't know this guy. So maybe there was some kind of trust, but when I did my 4-step with him, it was such 17 pages of it. And he didn't judge me, he accepted me for who I was. We talked about everything, and if it wasn't for he's my sponsor is super spiritual. He's teaching me how to meditate and to pray. He's taking me through the steps. He's helping me because I'm pretty new in my sobriety. I only have a year, right, JR? 1 year, 1 solid year,
and some months,
a couple months, but yeah. And like what Guy said, he told me that. Because I was the first sponsee, he actually made it all the way through the steps, and the longest sponsee he's had. He told me how much it actually helped him and how it changed his program and how he got more involved. And so I'm looking forward to getting some sponsees probably after well, if somebody asked me, I would obviously say yes, but probably after COVID is when it'll happen, I imagine. But my sponsor, he's always there. Like, it doesn't matter what time of day. I mean, he works kind of funky hours right now, but he'll always call me back. And if I can't get a hold of him, I can call his sponsor, which is my grand sponsor, Scott. And everything comes from him anyways, for the most part. It's like the tier, like if Nate doesn't know something, he'll call Scott, and sometimes we'll conference each other and we'll sit there and have a little conversation of how I need to handle what's going on in my life at that moment. And it's like a team of it's a team of thinking for me. Like this I don't know. It's weird. Because like something will happen and I'll wait a couple hours and just fester in my own head, and I should just call him right away. If I call him right away, he'll give me a suggestion of what I need. Everybody should get a sponsor, even if you don't know him or trust him, because it took me a while. I didn't trust him at first. Maybe I didn't want to trust him. Maybe I didn't want to open up. Maybe I didn't want him to see who I really was, or maybe that's what it was. And so, I mean, even if you're new, just ask somebody to be your sponsor. And if you don't like them, you can just get rid of them and get another one. There's no hard feelings to anybody, to you or the sponsor, potential sponsor. Just get one. Just ask somebody, just ask somebody. And if, like if you get somebody like JR and you think he's an asshole, then ask Guy. Or if
I might be the asshole too.
He might be the asshole too. But maybe that's what you need, is an asshole. Like he didn't co-sign. He didn't. My sponsor held me accountable for everything. I couldn't get over on him. Like, he knew my bullshit. I couldn't try to find a loophole or manipulate him. Like, there was no, like when I first was doing my 90-90, there was a concert here, and I asked him if I could go to the concert, miss the Saturday night meeting. And he goes, sure, you can miss that meeting, but you're going to need find a new sponsor. Because I was in the middle of my 90-90 and I couldn't miss every single one. He goes, yeah, you can go to the concert.
Damn, what concert was it?
Hopefully you'll find it. I can't remember. It's one of those in the park. Wasn't that big a deal.
Oh man, you were gonna go to the concert and you're gonna go see a Journey cover band?
It probably was. It probably was. I was gonna dress up like Steve Perry and go out there and sing,
Hey, those were fun.
No, they were fun, Like, I was like, oh, maybe I could go there and I'll find a sponsor at the park. But I was like,
yeah, good luck.
But at first I had a little resentment. I'm like, man, I wanted to go to the concert. It was the last one this summer. And I don't know, it wasn't a big deal, but I was like, wow, like he didn't. The only time I ever missed my 90/90s when I broke my foot that one day. I had to go to the hospital, and I think I was sick, and they didn't want me to go to the meeting. I missed two meetings in my 90/90, but I made them up. I went to 2 the next day, and like I made them up. So like the commitments are so important. It may seem like they're petty, but like when I was doing any commitment really, like if I couldn't make it on time, I would have to have somebody cover it until I got there, or you always had to have somebody cover it. You just don't not show up and not do your commitment. They're super important. Those commitments help me stay accountable. They help me be responsible. They help me get bills. They help me keep a job. They help me be on time. They help me clock in on time. Alarms. My sponsor instilled to me how important alarms are in your life until you get them. Like every day, my alarm goes off at 4:00 to call my sponsor. The guy helped me set a timer for 2:57 for work, so it's clock out every day. So alarms are super important because I was never on a time frame ever. It was my life. It was my self-centered selfishness. I did whatever I wanted, and like if I had to change my ways, if I needed to just to live a happy life, I had to learn these traditions and these principles in life and apply them to my life.
That reminds me, my sponsor would never let me miss a commitment. I would call my sponsor if for some reason I thought I wanted to give up a commitment. He would say, yeah, well, why do you want to give it up? Well, I don't think you should. Maybe you should hold on to it. At least, there's a reason why it's called a commitment. You're supposed to do it for a whole year. So why don't you do it for the whole year? And maybe you don't have to take that one next year. They keep us accountable, man. They keep us responsible for what we say that we're going to do. They help you build integrity.
Yeah, it's almost like a trick. They're like, oh, get a commitment at every meeting. Give to 90/90. So you start doing your 90/90, you get a commitment at every meeting. Some of those, most of the commitments are at least 6 months long. So even when your 90/90 is over, you still have to go the next day. You still have to go the day after that because you have commitments at all these meetings. And then when those commitments are up and they do new ones, you're getting another one. So I mean, it just keeps you connected. It keeps you in the program. It's kind of a brainwashing trick, but I think we lost Guy. What did he do? Go commitment?
Another thing my sponsor does is he believes in abstinence. And so I have to, and so do I, but I have to, I had to call him when I had, I don't know, 90 days clean. And I was sick. And so I was on the phone with him and I was like, I'm not going to go to the meeting because I'm sick and I don't want to get somebody sick. I'm just going to take some NyQuil and go to bed. And he said, you're going to do what? I said, I'm going to take some NyQuil. He said, you can't take NyQuil. Isn't there alcohol in that? I was like, yeah, but I'm a heroin addict, bro. NyQuil ain't going to fucking relapse me. He's like, yes, it is. You take fucking NyQuil and you're going to have to start all over with a newcomer chip. And I was like, I ain't taking a fucking newcomer chip.
And I'm not taking NyQuil either.
So I ain't taking NyQuil. Because what was the most important thing to me, especially when I was doing recovery? Well, still, the most important thing is always got to be my recovery. Yeah. It's always got to be number one. So my sponsor tells me NyQuil is a fucking relapse. I'm not fucking taking NyQuil. My sponsor is the smartest person I know. And I often talk to people about this. Is it a relapse? Is it not a relapse? When does my clean date officially start? I always tell them I can't determine that shit for them, that they have to talk to their sponsor about it. Now, if you got some bullshit sponsor that's going to co-sign some bullshit, well, then you could get away with some bullshit recovery. But if you got a badass sponsor like we do, then you're going to get some badass recovery and you're going to get the right answers when you ask them shit like that. My sponsor says no fucking NyQuil. I don't drink NyQuil. I trust that motherfucker.
I believe that, my God put lots of different people in my life in my path. Because actually there was this guy that picked us up for a meeting. I can't remember, I think his name was Mike, and I was like, hey, can you be my sponsor? But I wanted a sponsor just so I could go to do these passes and stuff for the treatment center. So I asked him, and he goes, yeah, sure. I'll be your sponsor. Start reading the page to 164, and I'm going out of town for a week or two. When I get back, call me. And I'm like, 2 weeks. Then the next day, my sponsor Nate came and picked me up. Because I'm an addict. I'm an alcoholic. I can only have one, so I had two sponsors for 2 days.
Yeah, that motherfucker Mike sounds like a sponsorino to me.
Yeah. I mean, he kind of, at that point, yeah, he was, because I just wanted him just for the title, just so I could Sponsorino in name only.
We don't do no sponsorinos. We don't do sponsorinos around here. We do
Tell us what a
sponsors.
sponsorino is.
Next day, my sponsor picked me up in his white Lexus. Not okay, it wasn't that nice, so I had to. If you're listening, I love you, but we had to hop through. He had to hop through the front door or the side door because it didn't open. And I'm like, who is this guy? Picking up people for meetings, and he's got to hold on. I got to get into the passenger side. He had to hop over the passenger side door because his door didn't open. It's pretty funny. Yeah. It was pretty funny.
I love it. So, so you ended up with Nathan. We love Nathan. Nathan's a good dude. But you had a sponsorino for a couple days named Mike.
It was one day. Yeah.
The sponsorino is a sponsor that when you're in treatment, they tell you got to get a sponsor. So you go and you'll ask fucking anybody, hey janitor, will you sponsor me? And Steve the janitor would be like, sure I will. And then you'd be like, I got a sponsor. His name's Steve. Well, do you call him? No. Do you go to meetings with him? No. Do you work steps with him? No. Well, then that ain't a fucking sponsor, bro. That's just Steve. You got a name is what you got. You ain't got a sponsor. You got a name. You got a sponsor in name only. In name only. I-N-O. You got a sponsorino. And what do we say about sponsorinos? No sponsorino.
In name only.
But I mean, if I wanted to stay sober, and if I wasn't ready, I would have kept Mike because I didn't have to call him for 2 weeks and I could have done whatever I wanted. But I knew that my life depended on it, and I said a prayer, and I don't know if it was just a coincidence or what, but the next day he picked me up for a meeting. I got in the car and I met my home group Quality Life, and I've been going there every single day since.
So a long time ago, I'm talking 15 years ago, 15 years ago, I was going to meetings, but I was still shooting up heroin every day. And I would go to the meetings, and in my mind, there was something in there. It's like, man, I hope that they say something that will help me stop shooting heroin, because otherwise I'm going to die. So one day I'm sitting in this meeting, and this guy shares this horrific story about his mom catching him with a spoonful of heroin, and she dumped the spoon out, and he assaulted her, and it's just a horrible story. And when I heard it, I thought, man, I understand that. Like, that dude is desperate. Like, that dude understands about how heroin could take you to places you never dreamed you'd go and turn you into a person that you never ever wanted to be. Like, I understand him. And he had some time clean. He had like 4 years clean, 3 years clean. And that was the first time, man, that I went up to him. And I was at this meeting. Like I said, I had been using, and I was dirty and I was worn out. And I was like, hey man, would you consider sponsoring me? And he goes, yeah. And I was like, cool. I'm not done using drugs yet, but when I am, I'll come back. And then I left. So that was Bob, man. That was Bob who told that horrible story and who I related to so well. But I still, I had the disease that wasn't going to let me stop doing drugs yet. So I left, and I kept going to that meeting semi-regularly, almost every week. Most weeks I was there, but I was always high. I would sit in the meeting after doing heroin, and I'd be sweating or bleeding or just all fucked up in the meeting. And then one day, June 24th, 2008, God hit me with the gift of desperation, right? And I said, today, please, God, let me hear something that'll help me stay sober. And so I sat through that meeting. At the end of the meeting, I went up to Bob again. And I said, hey, do you remember me? And he says, yes, man. Yes, I remember you. I've been praying for you by name. What? He said, I prayed for you by name. I told my sponsor about you. I told him, if I could cut myself open and give you recovery, I would. And I was like, that is fucking weird, bro. I just wanted to know if you remember me. I said, listen, man, are you still willing to sponsor me? And he said, yes, absolutely. Absolutely, I'll sponsor you. I said, well, what do I do? He said, well, I want you to call me in the morning and we will read Just for Today. And Just for Today is a little book that NA has of daily meditations. And it's got a different one for every day of the year. And so beginning that next day, the June 25th, 2008, I started calling him and reading this meditation with him. And we did that every day for at least 2 years, closer to like 5. Like I remember like 5 years of calling him almost every day, reading the Just for Today. And I remember thinking it was kind of weird because he would have other sponsees come and go. Like I was his only consistent sponsee for at least the first 5 years. Actually, probably for like the first 8 years. I think he's got a guy now with 4 years, but yeah. So for like 8 years, I was the only consistent one. So I had called and read the Just for a Day with him for like 5 years, but there was times during that where he had temporary sponsees where I'd call him to read the Just for Today, and I knew that he had already read it like 2 or 3 times that morning. And that was just how we started, man. And that's, you know, when I meet somebody who says they got a sponsor and their sponsor insists that they call them every day, I'm like, oh, fuck, that's awesome, man. You're so lucky. You can call your sponsor. You're going to read the Just for Today, or you're going to read the morning meditation or whatever. You're going to build that relationship, man. And I remember, you know, as soon as we started having those daily conversations, as soon as we'd end the call, he would say, all right, JR, I love you. And I'd be like, what? Why is this man telling me he loves me? Is he trying to have sex with me? What's going on with this man telling me on the phone that he loves me? I'm not comfortable with a man on the telephone with me saying I love you. That's fucking creepy. No, I won't have sex with you. What the hell is going on here? I was weirded out by it, man. I didn't understand because I had gone through my life. You know, I didn't really have a father. I wasn't familiar with a man telling me that he loved me, and it was a new and uncomfortable experience for me.
Yeah.
And I was weirded out by it, man. And it took me a long, long time to understand it. Maybe months, maybe years, man. I don't know how long it took me, but you know, at a certain point it clicked, and I was like, I love you too. But in the beginning, it was like, I love you, and I was like, okay, click.
Thank you. Bye. Your Bob sounds like an amazing. That's an amazing story. I love that story of your Bob there, JR. You know, for someone to see you cut open, he says, I wish that I could just cut open a part of me and give you some sobriety, you know, like that's awesome, man.
In a way, it kind of did.
Yeah, and he did, you know, that's what sponsors do. Sponsors love sponsoring people in recovery. People in recovery, our primary purpose is to stay sober and help another person that needs it to recover. That is what we do. Fear of getting a sponsor is huge with people. I had a lot of fear. I wanted to make sure I asked somebody who I knew was willing to sponsor. So I didn't want to just go up to somebody and then they say they don't sponsor. Look, we all have that fear in the beginning. So anybody's listening here that's new, we get it. You know, we get that there's fear, that there's just, I don't know, there's something about us that
self-centered fear.
Yeah, self-centered fear about asking someone to help us because we desperately need it. They know that we need it, and that's what they're supposed to do. You know what? Do not have any fear. If you do come across somebody, so for those who are listening out there, if you do come across somebody, just start asking people. And if you get somebody who says no, then they're not doing their program. In my opinion, they're not doing their job. They're not, because so that's on them. That is nothing against you, is what I'm getting at.
Unless they're in Pepperdine, then it's different.
Well, whatever. You know, some people just won't. They can't do it, or you know, all right. But it's nothing against you. You should never take that personally because someone says they can't sponsor you. Maybe they just, I don't know what their deal is, but they are supposed to be sponsoring people. That's what we do in these 12-step programs.
I don't know, like
go through it, and then we help somebody else go through it. People, what I'm getting at, hang on, don't take any offense, anybody. What I'm getting at is that there's a ton of people that are willing to sponsor you in these meetings. Sometimes people advertise it. They'll say, I'm willing to sponsor people. And sometimes people don't. They'll just be quiet about it. They won't say anything. But they are willing to sponsor. They just don't advertise it in the meetings or after the meetings or anything. So go and ask people. for those people out there listening who don't have a sponsor right now, just go and ask people, because you'll be surprised on how many people will say, sure. They might have a few suggestions that they want you to do to see if you're willing or not, like what Sean was talking about.
Or 2 pages in my case.
Oh, yeah, or 2 pages. Like, well, that's Sean could have said, no, that's too much for me. And then who knows what would have happened after that. But Sean did it. And that was cool. He laid it out for him right in the beginning. He's like, look, all right, yeah, I'll sponsor you. I would like you to do some of the things that I did when I got sober. I think that's very upfront and honest and respect.
I do all of them. And if I ever when I get a sponsee, they're going to have to do the exact same thing.
Good. And that's all right. That's the way you were taught, and that's what and that's awesome. There's nothing wrong with that, in my opinion. And then guess what? Like, so say for anybody's new out there who doesn't have a sponsor, if you're asking somebody and then they come up with some ideas that are some suggestions that you don't really like, then like Sean said, go ask someone else. There's a million people out there willing to sponsor. It's okay. You don't have to, it's not like, well, I asked someone to sponsor me and they said no, or it didn't work out. So I guess that whole sponsor thing is done. I hear that a lot. They're like, well, I had a sponsor at one time, but it didn't work out. No shit. You think there's a lot of people that have just one girlfriend in life or one boyfriend, and then that's the only one you have ever? No, man, you go through a lot of them, man. My horns getting you.
Men stick with the men, women stick with the women.
Yeah, all right. That's another topic. The thing is, like, get a sponsor. Get one, man. Go ask somebody. And if it doesn't work out the first time you ask somebody, ask them the next one. And then whatever. Just make sure we get one. We cannot do this thing alone.
Now, I would probably sponsor Sean, but I don't think I would sponsor Guy.
I almost asked you. If we didn't have conflicts of interest, JR, I probably would have asked you.
I'm fucking kidding. I wouldn't sponsor either, you motherfuckers. So just because I feel like Guy takes me a task a little bit on this, I had a teacher who I fucking loved and admired and respected. And he told me a long time ago that if you're going to work as a counselor in this field, that you should not be sponsoring people. And I remember being angry when I heard that. But the truth is over the years, what I found is I had a sponsee that kept relapsing and kept calling me and asking me to get him back in the rehab where I worked. And eventually I had my boss come to me and say, you can't be sponsoring this motherfucker. He keeps coming to rehab here. And I realized this is what Dr. Crossan was teaching me when I was new in drug counseling school, is that as a drug counselor, being a sponsor becomes a conflict of interest. And so I have lots of ways that I can be of service and lots of ways that I can help people to stay sober, but I do not sponsor people, at least for the time being. If someday I'm in a different position where I'm not a direct counselor with patients, maybe it would be more appropriate for me to sponsor people, but for now, I'm not sponsoring people. It doesn't mean I had my sponsor's okay with that. My sponsor also is on the board of directors at a treatment center, so he understands. Now, I have had 3 long-term sponsees who I love and I have relationships with, and I still pray for them by name every day. So if I can't do anything else, if I can't take them through the steps or I could still take their phone calls, man, but I can also pray for them. So, I'm not their sponsor anymore, but we're still friends. We still have relationships. It's all good. Even Kevin, who used to be the co-host here on the 4 Point Plan podcast, he and I are still very close friends. He's invited me to participate in his wedding coming up this year. So, yeah, it's all good, man. I keep hearing from that one, the brain damage sponsee, the one that I think you guys both know him. I know Sean knows him for sure. No, Guy, you know him too, right? The brain damage sponsee, I still hear from him all the time. He's a character. He's got 7 months clean. So, nice. He's probably got a better sponsor than I ever was, because now he's got 7 months. So, yeah, but I like sponsoring people, but I don't do it anymore. But I have my sponsor who I absolutely love, and I could talk about him for fucking days.
Me too.
That's right. And you needed him. We cannot do that. I could not do this thing alone.
So here's an important piece.
I never really tried.
yesterday's Just for Today talked about sponsorship, okay? And it's really important because it says basically to appreciate your sponsor. Don't use them as your emotional punching bag. And I think that's why it resonated with me and why I wanted to talk about it today because I was such a bad sponsee. I was such a bad addict early in recovery that I was mean to people. And I was even mean to my sponsor. I even fired my sponsor before just because I was blaming him for my bad feelings. So my sponsor's never really done anything wrong to me at all. And my addiction, which knows that if I don't have a sponsor, I will be more susceptible to relapse, convinced me into firing him once so that maybe I'd go out and get loaded again. I stayed sober. He and I had a good conversation. We made up, and he was my sponsor again. But, you got to remember to treat these people good, man, because they aren't getting paid for sponsoring you. They're giving of themselves freely to help us stay sober. And in return, the very fucking least we can do is appreciate them, man. And so I'm ashamed of the fact that I was ever disrespectful of my sponsor. And nowadays, man, I just can't shower him with enough love or appreciation. And so even though it's sponsor appreciation day or week or whatever, like I'm gonna appreciate my sponsor all the fucking time, man. Bob is the shit. I love that guy. And I'm always gonna tell you guys what a wonderful, awesome dude he is. And also, he takes me to see basketball games, and I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Bob was at my wedding, man. Bob was officially my best man. So, like,
Awesome.
Bob is the most important dude. I've spent fucking holidays with him, man. And, he just got over COVID, which was a trip. And I'm so glad that he's feeling okay. He got the vaccination too, because, like I said, he's on the board of directors at a drug treatment center. So he had the opportunity to get vaccinated this week. And, yeah, man. Hopefully he stays happy and healthy, and we get to trudge this road of happy destiny for a long, long time.
Yes. Because we love our sponsors. You're right. And you know what? They love us.
Oh yeah, dude, I got a fucking post-it note on my desk at work. It says Bob Hart's Jr. And whenever anybody comes in my office, they're like, Jr., who the hell's Bob? I'm like, that's my sponsor. I say it with a big old smile from ear to ear. I'm like, Bob's my sponsor, and my sponsor loves me, and I love my sponsor. Because that's how it works, man. It's a 4-point plan. It's about going to meetings. Yeah, it's about having a home group. It's about having service commitments. But it's also about having a sponsor, man, and developing that relationship with that dude that maybe you never had before. The one where you can now say, I love you too, man. I fucking love you. You are the guy. You fucking saved my life. I would be dead in a fucking gutter with a needle in my arm if I had never met you, Bob. I fucking love you. And I'm proud to say it, and I say it as often as I can. I let him know as often as I can. I called him yesterday. He was wondering why I was calling him, and I was like, just to let you know, man, I appreciate you and I love you. It's a good feeling, man. It's a good thing to do. I never had relationships like that in my life before where I could call a dude up just to tell him that I love him, but that's what I got with my sponsor, and I'm so grateful for that. So why don't we run around and wrap this bad boy up? But I want to hear you guys say something good about Nathan and Bob. Say something good about your sponsor before we say goodbye. What do you say, guy?
I say, I love my sponsor, Bob, also. If it wasn't for him, I I probably wouldn't be here. I would definitely be a lot more insane. But I could have went out and started youth getting loaded again. If it wasn't for that dude, I appreciate him tremendously. He helps me. He loves me, and I love him.
Dear Nathan, you found a light in me that I couldn't find. I appreciate you more than you ever could imagine. I'll talk to you today at 4 o'clock, and tomorrow at 4 o'clock, and the next day at 4 o'clock. We will continue our coffee dates once or twice a week, like we have been. I love you more than you know. The end.
That's right. It is Sponsor Appreciation Week on the 4-Point Plan, and we are excited to appreciate our sponsors this week, to tell you guys how much we love you and how we appreciate what you've done for our lives, for our families' lives, for the world, man. You made the world a better place by sponsoring us, helping us get sober and stay sober. If you have the opportunity, man, go out there and sponsor somebody. If you're new and you're trying to figure out how to stay sober, man, go get a sponsor. Let me run it down for you real quick, man. 90 meetings in 90 days, get a sponsor, get a home group, get a commitment, do the 4-Point Plan, and find a life beyond your wildest dreams. We will see you here next week on the 4-Point Plan podcast. Thank you all.
Bye, everybody. Go Rams.